nerds. We're back at it. This is another week for you, 20 minutes, 30 minutes for us. We took a little bit of a pit stop. You'll notice some gas stations in the background here. Really good jerky, really good kolaches, really good pies, really good fudge. Not Buc-ee's though.
No, we're in Centerville right now.
But a hidden gem in Centerville. There's two gas stations across the street from each other that kind of compete for the best.
No, they're owned by the same people now.
Right, but I mean, they don't compete, but they compete for like that random like food.
No, you talking about that one over there?
No, this one and this one. These two.
Oh, there ain't nothing in there.
Yeah, they have weird foods too. They do. They're just not as good as the good place.
Oh, okay. Name of the place is Woody's.
Yeah. If you find yourself in weird, random Centerville, Texas, go to Woody's, get some jerky. Tell them Waldo sent you. They won't know what you're talking about, but tell them anyways.
Actually, we do know somebody that works there.
Oh, do we?
Yes.
Okay. We'll talk about that later. So moving forward, we've done favorite wrestlers. We've done top tag teams. We've done guys and gals stables. I got one for you that I know you wanted to touch on more.
Why did... No, go ahead.
This one is inspired by one Rick the Model Martel. So this is a bit of an in-between guys, gals, best wrestlers. What if? It goes into your what if world.
Okay.
And we're not going to put a number on this one or a criteria because these are reasons that we will suss out ourselves as we discuss certain wrestlers. It's wrestlers that due to fluke injuries, weird gimmicks, wrong place, wrong time, just didn't have the impact that they maybe could have had.
Yeah.
Such as Rick Martel, who was you're a big proponent of Rick Martel.
Yep. Always.
And you think he could have been higher.
Should have been higher.
Should have been higher.
Even not could have, yes.
Yeah.
But even should have been when he was in the later part of his Fed run and going into WCW.
Yeah. But due to reasonings beyond the wrestler's control, usually, they didn't make it to that next level for whatever reason.
Yeah, we'll touch more on Rick Martel in a minute.
Yeah. So since I put you on the spot, and I left this guy off my guy's gal stable, I'm going to start it off, and I'm going to start off with Glacier. I think, and we've discussed this many times offline, if it hadn't have been for the NWO,
yeah, that was...
the Glacier gimmick would have done better when it did. And if it hadn't have been for people obviously going, that's just Sub-Zero, they stole it from Mortal Kombat, I think he could have been higher up. I don't think he's ever a world champion, but I think he could have been higher up on the card, and he would be somebody that people remember fondly, not just because they were right place, right time, but fondly because he got higher and did more in the business.
Since we talked about this already offline, I'm going to ask you, we know Glacier didn't succeed primarily because the NWO came around.
Yeah.
That begs the question for me.
Okay.
You knew that you were marketing Glacier for a long time. What was it, like 6 months?
They put a lot of money and time and effort into it.
Time, effort, money, thought. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that went into... Sorry. Me trying to readjust in my seat, and all of a sudden I hit the double yellow line. But there was a lot of effort that went into Glacier. You would think that somebody, somewhere in the main office would be like, let's not do this here. Let's do this somewhere else on the calendar.
This is what I think, though.
Which makes me wonder, either A, the NWO was a knee-jerk, or B, it was that well kept of a secret.
I think this kind of falls under another story, or another conversation we've had offline. Nirvana. The NWO was the Nirvana of wrestling.
Okay.
You had more realistic characters, more grungy feel to it, more gritty. So bands that were more theatrical, such as the hair bands of the 80s, the older legends like an Alice Cooper, the up-and-comings like a Rob Zombies, they got pushed to the side, and nobody realized it until grunge died and people were able to look back and go, oh, this is why theatricality kind of died. I think people didn't realize that
Well, and
that standard of we're using real names, we're using real scenarios, everything's a shoot. I don't think they realized that was going to kill off the more theatrical, silly side until after it did it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and that was the other thing that people look back on and thought too was maybe we went too far out.
Yeah.
And then weren't able to come back.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you have it now where it's like, this ain't to bash on anybody in particular, but it seems like every promotion has to have that evil owner.
Yeah.
Every promotion has to have that group of people within it that are always
trying to shut the company down.
Right. No pun intended, but rage against the machine.
Yeah.
If you will. And the ones that are actually taken to wrestling from from NWA days that made people like Flair, Sting, Road Warriors, and all the people we've mentioned before big. Mm-hmm. Those people that are following that kind of pattern are still suffering for it.
Yeah. I think we're finally starting to get back to a point to where theatricality is appreciated. I think The Fiend made some good headways there.
Well, and then there's that thing is like you can't go so far back over on the other side and tilt it over because I know where you're going with this.
No, I don't think we're there yet, but I think The Fiend has made some headways. I think House of Black, for better or worse,
that's a better example.
They've made some good headways.
I still can't get over the whole projector on the ring and
right.
Yeah,
that's why I said Fiend, not Bray Wyatt.
Okay.
I think there's a bit of Karrion Kross, who just re-debuted, has that kind of more. There's a gimmick there, you know what I mean? And we're starting to finally get back to that point. And even in music, we're starting to see that happen more and more. I'm happy that society's kind of getting back to that.
Yeah.
Where not everything has to be super serious.
Well, we've seen it in our, because Matt and I, we watch YouTube videos for like bands and stuff like that. And what was it, 10 years ago, it was kind of that effect. It was
a guy on stage in sneakers and a flannel.
Yeah, and just, sorry, you made me think of a terrible, terrible band that Dr. Brian and I went to go see.
Exactly.
You ever heard of Death Dalai Lama?
It's not Death Dalai Lama, but yeah, I know.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, the Dalai Lama. You got to mean Black Dahlia murder.
There you go.
Yeah.
They're terrible.
Yeah, but we're finally starting to get back into the more theatricality.
Hold on. But the guy that's their lead singer, God bless him if he don't try. It's the whole t-shirt and tennis shoes and guys shouting for the. But he's a bigger fellow, right? Yeah. And like as soon as he got on stage, he just started bust out in sweat. Like
it'd be me if I got on
one
stage.
step on stage, just it was a pool of sweat.
Yeah.
By the time they were on the second song, you thought somebody was going to have to go up there and get him. But he kept getting into it, man. Sorry, it was a weird side.
No, you're good. So that's my first choice. Glacier, I think, could have been, if you'd have packaged him as a serious MMA fighter, even though that was still a little bit before the time.
You said it best yesterday. He was Steve Blackman before Steve Blackman.
Yeah, like that kind of character. I think he would have been a solid U.S. champion and above. Never quite world title, but you could have thrown him into a world title match every now and then.
Yeah.
There you go.
My obvious is Rick Martel.
Right.
But we'll touch on that in a little bit and why this started. Oh, if you talk about underrated, underappreciated.
Well, that was wrong place, wrong time.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Question mark. He was
okay.
He met one of the criteria. He was at the right place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
If he had been in the NWA, 86, somewhere around that ballpark, he could have transitioned into the WCW purchase way better.
Yeah.
And he would have been almost front and center, just like Sting was.
Yeah.
Because Sting was at the right place, right time. NWA.
I would say he would almost fit better in. I know there's a name for it, but I forget. The early '90s Fed, right before Attitude Era.
OVW?
No. Early '90s Fed.
Oh, Next Gen.
Next Gen. I think he would have fit in Next Gen really well.
The ongoing joke is, you can't fit in Next Generation unless you have a second occupation.
The
So,
question
like,
mark does.
What was this?
He's like the Prime Minister of Monrovia.
Well, that's not really a secondary occupation. That's ruling with an iron fist.
Yeah. That's secondary. It's his main.
No.
Wrestling is his secondary primary.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
When you do something so well.
Karate instructor.
No, but does that make sense though?
Yeah. No, I feel you. I agree. I agree with that statement. And I mean, I think we can let the cat out of the bag at this point.
Yeah.
Even beyond the question mark, Josephus would have fit in a lot of eras better than the era he was in.
Man, so we went back and watched the stuff between him and Tim Storm.
Yeah.
When we finally figured out what was going on in the NWA around that time.
Yeah.
We missed out.
Yeah.
Granted, it's still up on the YouTubes and everything like that. And
Check it out. You should definitely check it out.
Championship Wrestling from Hollywood.
Yeah.
I believe it is. But Dave Marquez and all them. My goodness, that was a woefully underrated feud. Had the right two people in it. Completely the wrong time and place.
I say, touching on that too, like Tim Storm's kind of right place, right time, but wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah,
if somebody would have snapped him up 10 years younger than they did, 20, they could have built a company.
That's no dig on Tim Storm.
Yeah. They could have built a company.
We love him and Mama Storm.
Yeah. We saw him randomly before NWA.
Yeah.
In Inspire Pro, who we've mentioned on the podcast before. And he had a completely different gimmick than he did as Tim Storm. But it worked. Like, it worked on that level. If you could have found a way to lighten that bottle, take that lightning in a bottle and disperse it to the masses, or if he'd have been born in the 80s NWA.
Yeah.
Not born, he clearly was born, he's old. But been wrestling in the 80s NWA.
Which is, so, and if those of you are scratching your heads out there saying if he's that old, well, shouldn't he have been? He didn't start wrestling until, what, 10 years ago?
He was older, yeah. He was a teacher.
Yeah, well, still is.
Is a teacher.
And so, if he had started wrestling years back and done territory, he'd have been big.
And since we mentioned Mike Dell and underrated wrestlers.
Oh.
Mike Dell.
Mike Dell!
I meant Inspire, but no, Mike Dell's never been here. So another one for me.
Mike Dell.
Wrong place, wrong time. Still made the most of it. But I think if she was wrestling now, Ivory would be one of the top women's wrestlers of all time.
Yes. I'll give you one at the top.
And I want to throw Molly Holly in that one as well.
I was just about to suggest her name.
Both of them too. I think they were...
Molly Holly does not get enough praise.
Yeah. I think Ivory's in the same boat. I think Molly gets more than Ivory for me. But I think Ivory gave everything to those gimmicks and got nothing really in return for it.
Never.
And Molly was kind of the same boat. But
Right.
Molly has that weird underground groundswell of support that Ivory doesn't get.
I just thought of a name.
Okay.
I'm going to say the name and you're going to be like, that doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay.
But hear my reasoning.
Uh-huh.
Ahmed Johnson.
No, I agree with this.
Okay.
I agree with this.
Now, I know that there's people that if you're big into the wrestling news and what's the term? Smart.
Yeah.
Smart?
Smart. If you're smart.
If you're smart and you're a mark and all that, you're probably thinking, well, Ahmed Johnson was probably one of the unsafest workers of all time. We don't know. We're not wrestlers.
Yep.
But I will say this. He was definitely at the right place. He was there at the wrong time.
5 years earlier?
Even sooner. Or even way more back.
Yeah.
Only because his height was what, 96, 97? somewhere around there.
95, 96, I think. But yeah, around that.
If he had showed up on the tail end of like the Mega Powers era,
Yeah.
he would have been groomed, trained, and mentored correctly to be one of the next Hogan monsters.
He would have killed it in the Fed. He would have been amazing in the NWA.
He
His
would've-
shouty promos.
Right. He would have been. Now I'm just saying, if he had stayed in the Fed, he would have had to come in right after Mega Powers.
Yeah.
That would have most unfortunately probably taken away the Debo thing. Well, because I think that's around the same timeline.
Yeah,
I think.
no, it is. It is.
But we love Debo.
Love Debo.
We know where he's from. That's why.
I know his nephew.
Yeah.
Or I've met his nephew.
Yeah. Didn't y'all go to? Yeah.
We
yeah.
did a lot in junior high. Yeah.
So, if he had gone somewhere else, if he, just like you said, if he was in NWA, could you imagine if he had been taken under the wing by Dusty at around 87, 88? And real big into the bodybuilding and stuff like that. Oh,
Yep.
he'd have been kept far away from Warrior.
Yeah.
So that's my reasoning. Now,
He could have been Warrior before Warrior.
the other end of this is that what if we took a time machine and moved him into the future? What if he had started off in OVW?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the older one. I'm talking about when Al Snow took over.
Yeah, I agree.
So he'd have been, like I said, everything that he lacked while he was active, it would have been made up for, and also stretched out over a longer period of time. And because I was an Ahmed Johnson mark.
I was too.
I didn't understand a word he said, but I really enjoyed him being there.
He's one of the few people I rooted for against Shawn Michaels.
Yeah,
Typically, if Shawn Michaels was doing battle with him, I was a Shawn Michaels fan. But Ahmed, there was something about Ahmed that made me want Ahmed to just beat the crap out of Shawn Michaels.
well, I knew he wasn't from Mississippi. You could hear it in his voice. But I loved his theme music.
Yeah.
Jim Johnston Strikes Again.
His power bomb, might be unsafe, but his power bomb was beautiful.
It might kill someone, but it was worth
Beautiful.
no. Like I said, he had everything there. He did.
Yeah.
He had the aptitude for it at the beginning. It looked like he wanted it, etc., etc.
Yeah.
All right, you're next.
I'm going to go somebody the complete other end of the spectrum
Okay.
and say if they were around now, if they were getting started now, and that is the Hurricane / Shane Helms. Somebody who was willing to give. He went from 3 count. He went out there and tried his best to be in a boy band.
Yeah.
He went to, I forget what they called him, Sugar Shane maybe, the vertebraker, and like he had his dance. He put everything into it. He put everything into the Hurricane that you could put into the Hurricane.
He is his gimmick was most unfortunately cut short by a tragic event.
I'm saying take him, Shane Helms, the person,
Yeah.
and bring him into an era to where size isn't necessarily a detriment anymore.
And he could get a kind of the same gimmick but different name.
Yeah.
That was the thing. What was it? Katrina? Did he hit? It was a major hurricane that hit.
I forget.
And
Maybe.
it was a very one of the more
I think
damaging
it was
hurricanes
Katrina,
of all time, and in recent history. And that's what unfortunately took Shane Helm off the shelf.
Yeah. I think if he was starting 5 years ago from now, he'd be even more fondly remembered than he's going to end up being fondly remembered.
Oh yeah. I just thought of someone.
Okay.
My man, John Tenta.
Okay.
Right place, wrong time.
Yeah. And not even wrong time, wrong roster.
Yeah, wrong time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and Matt's heard me say this over and over, Earthquake's John Tenta is one of my favorite wrestlers.
This is #1 John Tenta fan. He probably loves John Tenta more than John Tenta's kids love John Tenta.
Well, growing up, I liked half of the natural disasters.
Tugboat's a lovely person. We met him.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
I just didn't like Tugboat.
Typhoon was not the one.
But Earthquake was the biggest monster that they had on the card at the time. The guy could go.
Yep.
And he was a phenomenal heel. Phenomenal face when he needed to be. He was a very utility player. Unfortunately, he was raised in a system that had to feed 6 to 12 months or 6 to 8 months of story, and then that was it. There was nothing.
Yeah.
Because the A story had to continue.
Yeah.
When he went to WCW, yeah, and that's where things just really went downhill.
Yeah.
I think that he was in the right place at the. He was wrong time.
If he'd have NWA'd and then fed,
Yeah.
I think he'd be bigger.
I think that he doesn't need that mentor like Ahmed needed.
No.
We just need to find a good time period for him to go to.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to say Attitude Era because that doesn't match.
It wouldn't work with the Typhoon or with the Earthquake gimmick. You had to give him a different gimmick. Because he was in the Attitude Era.
Yeah, I know, but not as Earthquake.
No. Golgoth? Gorga? Oddities.
Yeah, Cartman.
Cartman.
Yeah. He always carried the Cartman though.
Yeah.
And that just shows right there, the guy will do whatever you need him to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of who or what time period you could drop him off in, and he'd be okay.
Like I said, I think even you don't have to even do that. If you swap him, if you send him to the NWA first, and then send him to the Fed, he'd have got a bigger run in the Fed.
Yeah.
Because he'd have had some more star power to him.
Well, what if you brought him to this time period? Because he did the sumo thing.
The big
he was a legit sumo wrestler.
I know, but a big man gimmick is tough to get over nowadays, though.
Well,
But
I'm saying like you have an actual history with the guy.
yeah, no, I got you.
Like Brock with the MMA.
I would pay to watch him and Brock fight.
Yeah.
I would do that. I would go to early 2000s. I would pay to see him and Big Show square off.
Yeah.
Give him a hat, and you can even have him go for Taker Streak at a Mania.
Yeah. I was annoyed. My aggravation with WCW just kept adding. It was just fuel to the fire whenever they did something every week. I forgot what it was. Was it Brutus that shaved half his beard and half his head?
I think so. Yes, no, Zodiac.
Yeah, and it was just for some reason John Tenta had to walk around in public for what, a month?
Something like that.
Where half his head was shaved and half his beard was shaved. Straight down the middle. But he did it.
So, my next choice, and we're not going to have to go too far into this one because there's other people that have done this to death, and you can find those videos on YouTube.
Okay.
Because I think this person always comes up when there's a list kind of like this. Monty Brown.
Who?
Monty Brown. Pounce!
Okay.
Marcus Corvon, I think is what he was when he came to Fed.
Okay.
He was big in TNA when they were first getting started. He was fed to Jarrett. And then as he started to kind of rebrand and become big again in ECW Light, I think he had to leave to take care of his kids or his mom or something, if I remember correctly. And so, like, he never really got that chance to full-on commit to wrestling.
Okay.
But if he had, he was going to be a big thing.
Yeah.
And like I said, look him up on the YouTubes. Other people have done, there are tons of videos about this man and why he never made it. And worth checking out.
You made me think of one.
Okay.
You brought him up earlier. Titus O'Deal.
Okay.
Hear me out.
I didn't stop you. Why are you saying it? Hear me out.
late 80s, about 88 neighborhood, 89 to Mid-South.
Okay.
He would be and swap him with JYD.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, Titus would run the South.
Titus would be big in any territory as one of their main guys because of all he does as a real person.
Well, with Junkyard Dog, they basically ran him as a face all the time.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying, but I think he would have worked in any of the territories.
I think with Titus, I think Bill Watson put the title on him.
No.
And I think that moving forward into the Fed coming from Mid-South, that would actually help Titus out more going into the early 90s.
I'm going to say something controversial to the wrestling Twitterscape here real quick. I don't mean to be controversial, but I mean it for reals. I think Cornette could have done some big stuff with him in Smoky Mountain.
Yeah, mentor him a little bit better.
Yeah.
Slow down a little bit.
Yeah. And you would have had a nice contrast of Titus and let's just be real. They've touched on it. Jim Cornette's touched on it. The other wrestlers have touched on it. The whole like racism stuff that was going on in that time period.
Right.
You present this person that is very professional, very outreachy, very community.
What if you had swapped Titus and Ahmed? And it was
For time periods?
Yeah, and it was Titus that was going against the Nation of Domination.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are we at? 20 minutes? 26 minutes? Let's do one more piece, but not in depth.
Okay.
If we can think of one. Quickly think.
Arn.
Arn? If Arn was a wrestler outside of the Four Horsemen system?
Yeah, outside of the Four Horsemen system. Not any promotion in particular because they were all over the place.
Just if he had not joined up with the Four Horsemen. Not joined up with Rick.
Yeah.
He was never under a shadow?
And maybe bring him forward a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
Because we need more strong guys. Like, tough guys like that.
Maybe.
Who else? Because there's a few of them that you could think of that are wrestling now that would do better back then. And I think it's because, like, FTR.
FTR, definitely.
Oh, FTR would run the territories.
Definitely.
They would
Briscoes, too.
Yeah, same with the Briscoes. I don't think would ever have to leave WCCW, Mid-South, the Gulf region.
They'd run the Gulf region.
Yeah,
It'd be theirs.
And I think if they ever left that Gulf region, it would be because somebody paid.
I would say, like FTR is your traveling champs all across the nation. Briscoes run whatever small territory you need them to run.
I would like to see...
Or group of territories that you need them to run.
Roddy Piper be brought from early Fed days into current AEW. He's already slightly established.
Yeah.
People already know what he's about.
He's not overly big, but he's big enough to be imposing to most of the AEW roster.
And he would kind of keep it in check to make sure that there was a proper flow.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, let's be real. Could you imagine Piper versus MJF on the mic?
And that's another reason, too.
So either bring Piper here or bring MJF back there.
MJF's another one.
Let's say MJF and FTR and form a stable in the 80s.
That would be if you swap the Horsemen to now.
Yeah.
And FTR, MJF, and maybe one or two others. Yeah. Take them back to be the Horsemen back then. Yeah.
Who's that fourth horseman? Who are you taking back to be the fourth horseman?
Ooh. That's a tough call because there's not a lot of people who can really...
Hear me out.
Uh-huh.
We're going to do something that definitely would have turned some heads in the 80s.
Okay.
Our fourth horseman is a woman. Camille.
Oh, yeah. We were told that, one, she is a power lifter.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if you were here for this conversation.
I wasn't, but I can see that she's a powerlifter.
No. The conversation we had about Camille with, you know who?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Okay. So, I had asked a question. I was like, tell me about, what's the last thing that so-and-so told you? And they thought that I was talking about Camille from NWA. And they were like, oh my God, she's so, she's jacked, right? Apparently her ring gear weighs a good 35 pounds.
Yeah.
Why?
She's just that strong, man.
She's like Goku with the weights, the weighted gi and stuff like that. That's ridiculous. So we're gonna cut this one here.
Yeah, that's our.
I know we said we go more into the Rick Martel thing, but we'll do that later because we're already in Crockett.
We're starting to see trees, folks.
Yep, we have. If you noticed, also, our allergies have cleared up. We've left cedar and gone back into pine pollen.
Yep.
We're gonna stop and roll around in it.
All right, go ahead.
All right, don't forget, everyone is different and everyone is good.